Hello everyone, hope you're good. This lecture will be on economic growth and the economic cycle. So, let's go. So what is economic growth? Well, economic growth is measured by an increase in the real output or income of an economy over time. Now remember, we've said we can measure the real output, which should be equal to the real income of an economy via the GDP. So, if we're trying to measure the economic growth of a country, we can measure that by using the percentage change in GDP or GDP per capita compared to the year before. Now you might be asking yourself, what's the link between economic growth and economic development? Well, economic development is usually indicated by an increase in citizens' quality of life. So now we're talking about the overall quality of life as opposed to just the value of outputs and income. Now, while economic growth often leads to economic development, so a long period of economic growth should lead to economic development, it's important to note that a country's GDP doesn't include intrinsic development factors such as time, environmental quality, or freedom from oppression. For those, we can use the Human Development Index or the HDI to include factors such as literacy rates and life expectancy, which generally imply a higher GDP per capita income and therefore indicates economic development. Now we can talk about the types of growth. Actual growth is the rate the economy is growing at, measured by the annual percentage increase in national income. Potential growth measures how much the economy could grow if all its resources were fully employed. And your output gap measures the difference between actual and potential output. If the economy is operating below its potential output, then there is a negative output gap. The actual output of the economy in this case is below what it could be. So the economy is operating within the production possibility frontier. If the actual output of the economy is above the potential output, then there is a positive output gap. This would occur if firms were operating above their usual capacity levels, perhaps running additional shifts or working additional overtime hours. So we can see this in this production possibility frontier curves where we move from X to Y, representing actual growth, and we move above our PPF, and that shows our potential growth. All right, remember our production possibility frontier shows the maximum possible output combinations of two goods or services an economy can achieve when all resources are fully and efficiently employed. So in X to Y, in the case of this PPF, we have the movement from inefficiency to actual growth. In the second PPF, we have an outward shift of the PPF via the output gap. So the economy is increasing what it can produce. So we're increasing the capacities to produce, maybe with better technology or running over time. In essence, what we try to do during economic growth is to increase our national income. So we move our long-run aggregate supply from the left to the right, as we have over here. We'll move our long-run aggregate supply 1 to our long-run aggregate supply 2. So, what can a government do to promote economic growth? We all know that promoting growth is often an important economic objective for all countries. Well, the government could get itself involved in some supply side policies aimed at increasing aggregate supply. Some of this could be increasing the labor force via immigration and increasing the retirement age. The government could also train to build a more skilled workforce. The government could also make it easier to start a business. The government could make it easier to find finance for businesses, and the government could promote mobility to enable more people to find and accept jobs. Finally, for the purpose of this lecture, the government could engage in tax incentives to encourage more people to work. The government could also engage in tax incentives to encourage research and development and to encourage an entrepreneurial culture. What else can a government do to promote economic growth? Well, the government can engage in demand-side policies aimed at increasing aggregate demand. Some of these policies could aim to increase injections into the economy, so increasing things like investment, government spending, and export promotion. Some of these demand-side policies can also aim to reduce withdrawals from the economy. So things like savings and import spending are withdrawals from the economy, and the government can aim to reduce these. The government can also aim to cut interest rates to encourage borrowing and spending, so aggregate demand goes up. The government can also aim to cut taxation rates to leave firms with more profits to spend and households with more income to spend. And all of these would increase aggregate demand. These could be through fiscal or monetary policy. For instance, a cut in interest rates should encourage spending and reduce savings, right? So we can engage in monetary and fiscal policy as appropriate. Now, we said one of the supply side policies could aim to increase research and development. Why is this important? Because research and development can be used to develop new products that could benefit all our lives, cleaner products, better technology, better ways of doing things, and this would help us to increase our growth. Research and development can also develop new ways of doing things as opposed to just the new products. We could become more efficient. And R&D, research and development, helps firms this way to become more productive. So increased R&D expenditure should lead to higher productivity, reduce costs due to more efficient ways of doing things, and higher quality products. We also said a supply side policy could help to develop an entrepreneurial culture. Why? Because developing an entrepreneurial culture helps us to take risks and produce more goods and services, which will increase our economic growth. Now, ways of promoting an entrepreneurial culture include providing benefits and support for those wanting to start up a business, encouraging banks to provide finance and to take risks, investing in startups, and providing legislation that allows people who fail in business and go bankrupt to start up again more quickly. Now that we've talked about economic growth, we can go on to talk about the economic cycle. The economic cycle shows the pattern of economic growth that tends to occur in economies over time. Things to consider when we're talking about the economic cycle are things like GDP growth, demand in the economy, so aggregate demand in the economy, the total unemployment rate in the economy, and of course, the investment level in your economy. What are the stages of your economic cycle? Well, there are 4 stages in your typical economic cycle. The first stage is the boom stage. So in the boom stage, this refers to the period of positive economic growth and prosperity when there is an increase in the real output or income of an economy over time. So these are the good times. These are the times that everyone wants. The boom stage. Next, we can talk about recessions. Now, nobody likes to hear about recessions. Why? Because recessions are about negative growth in the economy for at least 2 continuous quarters. That's 6 months. Or it's the economic situation in which for at least 3 quarters there is no growth in the economy. Nobody wants this. However, it could get worse. We could actually fall into a slump or depression. What's a slump or depression? This is a sustained long-term downturn in economic activity in one or more economies. During this stage, unemployment is high, demand is low, there is downward pressure on price and profits, business confidence is low, investment is low. So what do we get? We have a real GDP decline of more than 10%, or maybe a recession lasting 2 years. Next, we can talk about the recovery. So when things start getting better, your recovery, things start getting better. Here, demand starts to pick up, production increases, business confidence picks up, and this leads to more investment. In this situation, the economic situation is reverting to the pre-slump situation. So what are the causes of the economic cycle? Well, the causes of the economic cycle include expectations. For one, if expectations regarding the state of the economy is positive, so people expect the economy to get even better, it will generate spending or investment by households and or companies that would stimulate further economic growth. So households would go out there and spend, companies would go out there and invest, and this would stimulate further more economic growth. How about stock levels? If there's an increase in stock levels, so raw materials, components, semi-finished goods, and finished goods waiting to be sold, this can lead to further investment in production that can help growth. How about government policy? Outdated data and slow decision making may make the government implement a policy such as a tax cut or increase in tax rate that is not suitable for the current economic situation. In this case, you have a mistimed government intervention. So say the government comes and implements a tax hike, right? And that slows down economic activity, then you have a recession. Or there's a tax cut that is too great, and then we have a boom, and it might overheat the economy. Okay? So national income growth does not follow a steady path. Growth tends to occur in cycles, and hence the economic cycle. So you tend to have a boom, a recession, a slump, and a recovery. So economic growth does not follow a straight pattern. We usually have a relationship that goes up and down like that. Okay. Here's our class activity for the week. The first question says, here are a few economic growth models. Describe each in a few sentences and state which you agree with and why. The second says, do you have a favorite? Okay, so your economic growth models are down here. Please do some research on them. Describe each in a few sentences and state which you agree with and why. And also, do you have a favorite? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Thank you very much. Have a fantastic week. Be good and bye.